on, guys? It is Evan here from Evan Sports Corner, and I'm back in the video here on the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the NHL Draft Lottery, which was a couple days ago. A lot of big things happened. It was a crazy draft lottery. A lot of potential franchise stars coming into the league next season. So it's going to be an interesting draft. Interesting to see who the teams take, especially the Seattle Kraken with the second overall pick. So yeah. Before we hop into this video, remember to leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the sports content like this. Let's hop right in the video. So first I'm going to talk about some of the prospects that I looked at in this draft. There are 5 prospects I'm talking about in this video. The first is Owen Power, a defenseman out of Michigan. Power is insane, and Owen Power is an amazing player, by far the best player in this draft. Great size, 6'6". He kind of just does it all. At Michigan last season, Owen Power had 3 goals and 13 assists. Too shabby for Owen Power. He also had a plus 18 plus minus, so not bad at all for Owen Power. Pretty solid stats. Played in 26 games for Michigan. He should be a franchise player for Buffalo if they do not ruin him like they have done with other past draft picks, such as Rasmus Dahlin, who they took with the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. Hopefully Power can stay healthy. With the second guy I'm going to be talking about in this video is Brandt Clarke. He is a 6'2" defenseman. He played for HC Nove Zomac. Probably mispronounced that, but he looks like a pretty solid two-way defenseman in this draft. A lot of these top prospects are defensemen. Brandt Clarke looks really great. He had 5 goals and 10 assists last season for his overseas team. Great player. He should be a solid two-way defenseman in the NHL. Very electric player. Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like a franchise defenseman to me. So he's one of the top prospects in this draft. Another guy I'm going to be talking about is Luke Hughes. Now, the Hughes name might sound familiar, and it is. He has 2 brothers who are both young stars in the NHL. Quinn Hughes, who is a defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks, and Jack Hughes, who was the number 1 overall pick. He's a center for the New Jersey Devils, who also own the 4th overall pick. So Luke Hughes is very interesting. He had a pretty solid season playing for the Team USA under-18 team. Had 6 goals and 28 assists. That's a lot of assists. He was great last season for Team USA. He should provide some scoring. Great assist guy for any team that drafts him. Luke Hughes sounds like a very solid prospect, and he's got hockey in his DNA because his brothers are great, so he should be great too. The top forward in this draft is center Matt Benier. He also went to Michigan like Owen Power. Benier is a solid player. He's very good. He had a pretty solid season last year. He had 10 goals and 14 assists. Not bad for Benier either, considering that Michigan is loaded, and he also had Owen Power on his team. So, yeah, Matt Benier looks like a solid center, electrifying center. Fun. He can be a franchise player off rip, just like any of these guys, but Matt Benier seems to be a fun guy who can really bring people to the arena. So, he sounds like an interesting pick for a certain expansion team. And the last prospect I'm going to be talking about is Simon Edvinsson. Simon Edvinsson's pretty tall, 6'4" defenseman. People are comparing him to Seth Jones. That's kind of the archetype that they're giving him. He had a pretty okay season last year. He played for a ton of different clubs. He seemed to average around like 5 assists for all the teams that he played for and all the different seasons he played for in Sweden. Looks like a pretty solid player. He's got the archetype to be great. He should be a solid player. Now we're going to get into the draft lottery, which the order is up on screen right now. So, with the first overall pick, the Buffalo Sabres are on the clock. Now, the Buffalo Sabres are probably going to take Owen Power. Owen Power seems to be the best player in this draft by far. There are a lot of good players, but Owen Power seems to be the best. So, the Sabres hopefully will not ruin Owen Power. A slam dunk pick for the Sabres. Hopefully they don't mess him up. With the second overall pick, the expansion team Seattle Kraken are on the board. Now, this is not a mock draft at all, but I do think that the Kraken are actually going to go with Matt Benier. They could go with a franchise defenseman like Brandt Clarke, but Matt Benier just seems to be the perfect draw to the crowd. You need that guy who can bring people into the seats, and Matt Benier seems to be that type of electrifying player. But if they wanted to repeat the same success that the Golden Knights did a few years ago in their first year as an expanded franchise, they're going to need good defense, so they could go with Benier or they could go with Clarke. With the third overall pick, the Anaheim Ducks are on the clock. I think that the Ducks are either going to go with whichever defender's on the board, Luke Hughes or Brandt Clarke. I think they're going to go with Brandt Clarke. The Ducks haven't been great in recent years, so hopefully they can get themselves a franchise player. Probably a franchise defender. We'll see what they do. And the fourth overall pick, I really hope that Luke Hughes is still on the board so that the Devils can draft Luke Hughes to be their franchise defenseman. And it would be funny to have two of the Hughes brothers together on the same team. Jack Hughes was the #1 overall pick a couple years ago. He's a great player. And it'd be cool to reunite the Hughes brothers on the same NHL franchise. It sounds like a lot of fun. And, I mean, the Hughes brothers can potentially carry the Devils for many years to come. It sounds like a good get. And Luke Hughes is a phenomenal player. So it just seems like that'd be really dangerous to have two Hughes brothers on the same team. And with the 5th pick, the Columbus Blue Jackets are on the clock, and I think that they are going to get Simon Edvinsson. And it's interesting that they would get Simon Edvinsson. Obviously, his numbers didn't look great last season, but the thing is, the Blue Jackets are entering a phase where they need to start trading a lot of players. They traded for Patrick Laine. He's been terrible. They're probably going to end up trading Seth Jones. It would be cool to draft Simon Edvinsson because people are comparing Edvinsson to Seth Jones, so you might as well trade Seth Jones and then potentially draft the next Seth Jones. Sounds like a smart thing to do. They're going to probably be parting ways with a lot of people. Tortorella's gone, so a new age of Columbus hockey. They need to get themselves a good defenseman to replace the guys that they're probably going to trade. So now we're moving on to the rest of the lottery. The 6th pick is the Detroit Red Wings. They've made slight progressions. I mean, a little bit. Anthony Mantha, they got rid of him. They got a pretty solid package in return. They're going to need to make more trades like that to continue to get better, but they're looking better. The 7th pick, the San Jose Sharks, they have a lot of issues. Guys like Erik Karlsson are not happy that they're going through a rebuild. This team just flat out stinks. And they had a chance to win the Stanley Cup a few years ago and they blew it. 8th pick, the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings have been a good team in the past. They've won Stanley Cup, but the Kings are older. Anze Kopitar is really old. Drew Doughty is solid, but the Kings just need a lot of help on this team, and they need to draft a good player in this draft. The Vancouver Canucks are the 9th overall pick. Luke Hughes is probably not going to fall, so they're probably not going to have a defensive pairing of Quinn Hughes and Luke Hughes. That'd be cool if that was the case. That's probably not going to happen. The Canucks were expected to take step forwards. They looked pretty solid in the bubble last year. But Braden Holtby was not great for them last season, and Elias Pettersson was out a lot of the year. They had the COVID stop it. They had a rough year. Hopefully the Canucks can bounce back next year. They'll get a good draft pick, good player, and they'll be able to use him next season. With the 10th overall pick, the Ottawa Senators are on the clock. Now the Senators are an interesting team. They've gotten better. They used to be just terrible. They've made improvements, but they're not great, and they're going to need to draft some more great players before they get back to their winning ways. With the 11th overall pick, the Blackhawks are on the clock. The Blackhawks probably need to start blowing things up. Jonathan Toews is not great anymore. Patrick Kane's still solid. But this team has tradable assets, and they probably need to rebuild, start going into a rebuild phase. The Blackhawks are not great. They are not the same team that they once were, and they can start right here by drafting a franchise corner. The Flames are in a similar situation as the Blackhawks with the 12th overall pick. The Flames have a lot of great players on their team, but they just have never been able to put together. Johnny Hockey, Sean Monahan, Giordano, they need to start trading players away. Now they keep players like Matthew Tkachuk, but they gotta get rid of these guys, and they gotta start rebuilding because this team they just cannot win in the postseason. With the 13th pick, the Philadelphia Flyers are on the clock. The Flyers were supposed to be Stanley Cup contenders this year, but they took step backs on a ton of different levels. Carter Hart wasn't as great this year as he usually is, and the Flyers should be better next season. They need to hope that this was just a fluke year and that they can get back to their winning ways. But yeah, they don't necessarily need a great player this year, but hopefully the Flyers can get back to being a good team next year. With the 14th pick, my Dallas Stars are on the clock. Blame them not making the playoffs on whatever you want. The Stars were a solid team last year. They had a lot of injuries to guys like Radulov, Bishop, and Sagan. Hopefully this year the Stars will be great. Robertson looked phenomenal last season. The Stars, if they get healthy, should be able to make the playoffs this year. But maybe they can draft a stud like they did with Jason Robertson late in the lottery. I mean, I know Jason Robertson was a late draft pick. With the 15th pick, the New York Rangers are on the clock. The Rangers are solid, but they dealt with a lot of crap this year. They had the whole Artemi Panarin situation with his off-the-ice crap and also getting injured on the ice. Alexis Lafreniere was not as good as he was supposed to be this season. It's still early. He can rebound, obviously. But, yeah, the Rangers are a pretty solid team. Hopefully they can get better. So, yeah, I mean, the Rangers can draft a good player here late in the lottery. And they might be an interesting team here in the future. But, yeah. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to leave a like if you enjoy. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to not more shorts on like this. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.